Hello fellow painters, welcome back to my channel. Outside is raining, it starts to be very cold. That means that the perfect weather for miniature painters is back, and I hope you enjoying it as much as I do. Till now I have painted for my little diorama project the monk, the sorceress, the necromancer, and today it's time for the druid. So I hope you're gonna enjoying it as much as I did painting it. So without further explanation, grab your paints, brushes, and let's start.
Mix Vallejo German Red Brown and Vallejo Black Primer in a 10:2 ratio. This custom mixture will serve as your primer. Apply it evenly to the miniature, ensuring complete coverage while maintaining the details. The Vallejo German Red Brown adds a warm, earthy tone to the primer, enhancing the depth of your miniature colors when you start painting. Allow the primer to fully dry before moving on to the next step. Load Vallejo Elf Skin Tone into your airbrush, diluting it with an appropriate thinner if necessary. This paint will be used for the first highlight on your entire miniature. Begin by holding the airbrush at a slight angle and spraying lightly over the miniature. Focus on raised areas like the face, shoulders and limbs to create natural highlights. Keep the airbrush at a consistent distance for even coverage. Prepare a mixture of Vallejo Elf Skin Tone and Vallejo White ink, creating a blend that's lighter than the previous Elf Skin Tone layer. This will be used for the second highlight on the skin. Load the airbrush with this custom mixture, ensuring it's appropriately thinned for smooth application. Begin by lightly spraying this mixture over the miniature, focusing on the areas that would naturally catch more light, such as the tops of the cheekbones, nose and raised muscle areas. Continue using the Vallejo Elf Skin Tone and Vallejo White ink mixture from the previous step, ensuring it's appropriately thinned. For this step, focus on reducing the area where you applied this third highlight on the skin. Apply this third highlight sparingly, using controlled bursts of the airbrush to avoid overdoing. The reduced area of application will create a sense of realism by simulating the way light interacts with the skin contours. Take your time and build up the highlight gradually until you achieve the desired level of brightness and contrast on the miniature skin. Continue working with the Vallejo Elf Skin Tone and Vallejo White ink mixture, ensuring it's well thinned and ready for precise airbrushing. In this step, we will further refine the skin by adding a fourth and final highlight. Concentrate on an even smaller area compared to the previous step. Target only the absolute highest points where light would hit, such as the very tip of the nose, the most prominent areas of the cheekbones, and any other extreme highlights. Prepare your airbrush with Citadel Gulliman Flash, a versatile paint for blending skin colors. Ensure it's appropriately thinned for smooth application. In this step, I will focus on blending the skin tones seamlessly from below the miniature. Hold the airbrush at a low angle, directing the paint towards the lower portions of the figure. This technique helps to create a natural transition between the highlights and shadows on the skin. Load your airbrush with Vallejo White ink, which will be used to create highlights on the areas of the miniature other than the skin. Ensure the paint is appropriately thinned for precise application. Be mindful of the intensity and placement of these highlights, as they can significantly impact the overall appearance of your druid miniature. Gradually build up the Vallejo white ink to achieve the level of brightness you desire, and take your time to ensure the highlights enhance the miniature's visual appeal without overpowering it. Before proceeding with additional paintwork, apply Vallejo matte varnish to the entire miniature. Vallejo matte varnish dries to a protective, matte finish that will safeguard the previous layers of paint. This precaution ensures that you can handle the miniature without fear of smoothing or rubbing off the colors as you continue to work on other parts of the miniature, providing both protection and peace of mind. Prior to applying the base colors, evaluate the miniature in its current state and take note of the areas you intend to paint. Remember to allow each color to dry thoroughly before proceeding to the next one, and consider applying multiple thin coats for better color depth and opacity. These base colors will serve as the starting point for adding more intricate details and highlights in the following steps. Use Vallejo matte varnish once again to safeguard your work. Ensure the miniature is entirely dry after applying the base colors. Vallejo matte varnish will create a protective barrier over the base colors, preventing the oil wash from damaging or dissolving them. This step is crucial for maintaining the integrity of your paintwork while you add depth and weathering effects with the oil wash technique in the subsequent steps. Apply the oil wash carefully to the entire miniature, excluding the skin areas that you have previously painted. Be patient and work in sections, as this technique requires precision. After applying the oil wash, let it dry for about 30 minutes. Once the oil wash is fully dry, you can use a clean cloth or cotton swabs lightly damped with spirits to selectively remove excess wash from raised areas, highlighting them and creating a weathered or worn effect. The oil wash adds depth, contrast and realistic sense of shadow to your miniature, making its features and details pop. It's a valuable technique for achieving a weathered or battle-worn appearance. To prepare for object source lighting, start by using Vallejo white ink. This step will help create a foundation for the upcoming OSL effects. Determine the areas on the miniature where you want to apply the OSL. These areas will be the source of the light. Take your time and ensure that the Vallejo white ink is applied smoothly and evenly on the selected areas. Keep in mind that the success of your OSL effect will depend on the quality of this pre-highlight, so pay close attention to details. Now that you've prepared the miniature with the pre-highlight, it's time to bring the OSL to life. For this step, use Citadel Frostheart, which will serve as the primary color for the OSL effect. To enhance the OSL effect, feather the edges of the painted area, allowing it to blend seamlessly with the surrounding colors. This technique simulates the diffusion of light and adds realism to the effect. Depending on the desired intensity of the OSL, you may need to apply multiple thin layers of Citadel Frostheart to achieve the desired glow. Allow each layer to dry before adding the next one. To create a faded or dispainting effect in your OSL effect, I will use Citadel Terradon Turquoise, a complementary color to Citadel Frostheart. Focus on the areas where the OSL gradually fades or becomes less intense. This could be around the edges of the glowing source or in the areas where the light would naturally scatter. Citadel Basilicanum Grey will be used to blend and tie together the colors from below the miniature, creating a harmonious and unified look. Carefully apply Citadel Basilicanum Grey to the lower portions of the miniature, starting from the base or feet and working your way upward. Be patient and meticulous in this step, as the blending process is essential for a realistic and cohesive appearance. To enhance the OSL effect, I will use Vallejo turquoise for edge highlighting on the areas affected by the light source. Identify the edges and the contours on the areas where the OSL is most pronounced. These are the parts of the miniature that would catch the most intense light. Carefully and lightly run the brush with the Vallejo turquoise along the edges of these areas. This edge highlighting technique adds a vibrant, glowing effect to the OSL, making it appear even more pronounced. Be subtle and selective in your application, focusing on the areas where the light would naturally hit and create the most significant contrast. To further emphasize the object source lighting effect, I will use a mixture of Vallejo turquoise and Vallejo white to highlight the most raised and prominent parts of the OSL areas. Identify the highest points on the OSL affected areas, such as the tips of the flames or the brightest spots on the magical source. These are the areas where the light would be the most intense. By using Vallejo turquoise and Vallejo white on the raised parts of the OSL, you will achieve a captivating and dynamic light effect that adds depth and realism. Vallejo golden olive will be used for the first highlight on the green parts of the mini, and I will dilute it to ensure better blending. The stippling method is an excellent choice, as it allows for both highlighting and weathering simultaneously. Instead of traditional brush strokes, use the stippling technique. Tap the brush onto the surface of the green areas to create a textured, speckled effect. This method adds highlights and a weathered appearance simultaneously, making it perfect for a druid's natural or rugged look. Focus on gradually building up the highlight by stippling more paint onto the raised or exposed parts of the green areas. Continue stippling until you achieve the desired level of highlight and weathering on the green parts of your mini. For the second highlight on the green areas of your mini, I will use a mixture of Vallejo golden olive and Vallejo livery green. This blend will further enhance the depth and realism of the green parts while still using the stippling method for highlights and weathering. Use the stippling technique as before, but this time apply this mixture with a lighter touch. Concentrate on the highest points and edges to create a sense of brightness and wear. Continue stippling with the blend until you achieve the desired level of highlight and weathering on the green areas. To begin highlighting the leather section on your miniature, use Citadel Baneblade Brown. This will add depth and definition to the leather while creating a weathered look. Carefully apply this color to the raised or textured areas of the leather where the light would naturally hit. This creates the first layer of highlights. Citadel Baneblade Brown will provide a warm, earthy highlight to the leather, adding depth and character to these elements of your miniature. For the second highlight on the leather section of my druid miniature, use Citadel Zandri Dust. This step will add additional dimension and depth to the leather by focusing on smaller, more pronounced areas. Concentrate on the smaller and more specific areas where the light would be the most intense. Citadel Xandri Dust will provide a lighter and more pronounced highlight compared to the first step with Baneblade Brown. It adds visual interest and complexity to the leather, making it appear more textured and weathered. To create the first highlight on the 4 elements of my druid, use Vallejo Ochre Brown. This step will focus on the most raised areas of the fur using dry brushing, followed by detailed touch-up with the regular brush. Gently and lightly run the dry brush over the raised fur elements, allowing the Vallejo Ochre Brown to catch on the raised texture. The dry brushing technique will naturally highlight these areas without overpainting the recesses. After dry brushing, take a regular fine brush and use Vallejo Ochre Brown to touch up any parts that may need more precision, such as fur tips or specific strands. For the second highlight on the 4 areas of your miniature, I will use Vallejo Heavy Gold Brown. This step involves dry brushing to start, followed by detailed touch-up with the regular brush. Identify the most raised parts of the fur where you want to apply the second highlight. These should be the highest points of your individual fur strands or tufts. Gently and lightly run the dry brush over these raised fur areas. The dry brushing technique will naturally pick up the texture. After dry brushing, switch to a regular fine brush. With Vallejo Heavy Gold Brown, carefully fix and highlight the specific fur tips and strands that may require more precision and definition.